your clients know that you can use AI now. Instead of me paying you 10 grand a month, I just want to pay you 5 grand a month, and I want to get more than I got when I was paying you 10. Basically, agencies just have to evolve to that model, or they're going to die. And I'm like super excited about this opportunity to do all the things I just said. But at the same time, wouldn't it be nice to buy a business where AI isn't a thing? Maybe I should buy a restaurant, something where you don't have to worry about AI disruption.
The first thing I was wondering is I couldn't find the numbers on how many people you have at the parent company, because the numbers I found were that you were spending 900K USD per quarter, and this is going down. So I imagine it's not 6 people like I read somewhere. So what is like the size of the parent company? How is it organized? And how many people? Yeah.
I mean, it is probably about, at the executive level, there's really 2 or 3 people. And then we have another maybe 6 people who are just at the parent company. The reason the costs are what they are isn't because of payroll, it's because of all the other costs of being a public company, like all the legal fees, the listing fees, and the audits and everything like that.
Okay, so it's more like fixed cost, and if you scale the portfolio, those costs will stay small.
Yeah, that's the idea behind it. Yeah, some costs will go up, but like if we buy one more business or we buy 5 more businesses, our audit cost is probably going to be only marginally higher. And like NASDAQ doesn't charge us more to be public based on how many companies we have. So if we're paying like let's say $1 million a year to be public, and then we double our size, maybe it will cost 1.1 million to be public. It should scale pretty well.
It's good info for the investors, because basically now you are building the base of something that can become big, and it's the least profitable that it will ever be as long as you keep growing, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. I think it's taken us longer than we hoped, but the idea was always like, okay, we have these fixed costs because we've been building the infrastructure, and every time we buy a business, it just gets us closer to like passing that fixed cost. So yeah, that's the thing we're working towards.
Okay, so since the IPO, I think you had 6 or 7 main acquisitions, but I also read that before that you did like around 30. Can you tell us more about the smaller ones that maybe people know less about?
Yeah, I think we've done 7 since the IPO, and before the IPO, so how Onfolio started, I was doing some of my own acquisitions, and I was helping others do acquisitions. Like maybe somebody wanted to buy a business for 50K or 100K. I think the biggest we bought with someone else was $1 million. And so the 35 acquisitions we did were a mix of them. Like maybe I bought 5 businesses with my own money, and then I bought some with joint venture partners, like a group of us raised some money together. And we did that, I think, 4 times. And then, I just had some clients who they hired us to help them find a business to buy. Those were mostly, I'd say probably like 90% of them were content websites. And luckily we kind of stopped buying content websites in like 2021, I think.
Yeah, is it dead?
It's not dead. I think, well, maybe it's dead. I don't know. I think for us, the problem for us was, when you buy a business, you should be able to say, will this still be around in 5 years or hopefully 10 years or whatever. And content websites, just Google was doing an algorithm update almost every month, and it just seemed like whenever there was an update, no content site benefited. There was always something else that benefited, like like an online magazine or an e-commerce website or something like that. And so we didn't do it because of AI. We just felt like content sites are a risky investment because you don't really have much control over the outcome. And then AI happened, so it
Mm-hmm.
didn't actually affect us that much, but it probably would have done.
Okay, and so you were saying you did it for you. Then some people started reaching out, saying, "Can you do it for us?" And I think I've heard in another interview where you said it's just like good at like the classic thing where you become good at something, and then people ask you to do it for them, and then you have a business, and it became the start of the adventure.
Yeah, it was kind of like two or three things happened at the same time. So I'd been buying online businesses and I felt like I was quite good at it and I really enjoyed it. And so I had this other business at the time, but it was about helping people start businesses. And so I was kind of thinking, I want to do something bigger. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I can buy businesses. Maybe I can start a fund. Like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to start a fund. But then at the same time, I surveyed my audience in my other business, and I was like, "Hey, is there anything you're interested in that, um, like we're not doing?" And I think about 4 or 5 people out of maybe 50 who replied said, "I want to buy large, profitable businesses. I don't want to buy
Mm.
starter businesses." And so I was kind of like, "Oh, that's interesting. I want to do that too. Maybe I can help you, and I can do it with your money, and you get my skill." So that was really the like, okay, let's dig deeper here.
And so that's how you started Onfolio and decided. Is it why you decided to get public? Why did you decide this structure? How much did you raise versus creating a fund, as you said, another option?
Yeah, so mm, Onfolio really started in 2019, um, and we grew pretty quickly. There was lots of demand, lots of people looking for like exactly this type of service. And after about a year, so very early 2020, it was before COVID, so maybe January, February 2020. I I was a little bit frustrated. Like I felt like, okay, I got a good opportunity here, but like I'm just dealing with lots of different clients and lots of different investors, and basically I've just got an agency. So
Mm.
um, how can I really seize a bigger opportunity? And also, how can I get a better result for investors? Because I think at one point we had something like 30 websites that we were managing, and maybe a Google update would come, and two websites would get hit, or one website would get hit. So overall, it's like, oh, cool. Only one of our investors got hit. 29 others are fine. That's like a good track record. But then you think about if you're that one investor, you kind of don't really care about the other 29. So I thought, well, I think maybe what makes sense then is to have some vehicle where, like, everybody shares the same websites, and then if one person gets hit, it doesn't really matter, or if one website gets hit, it doesn't matter. So I started looking at the options, and so the obvious ones were either start a holding company, and there were a couple of other businesses at the time who were
Mm-hmm.
trying to do similar, or start a fund. And the thing that made the most sense to me was a holding company, but we almost went down the fund path instead because a fund felt like it was easier to raise money for and easier to do. But I felt like a holding company would be more suitable to the type of like investments that I wanted to do. And then in around April or May 2020, I connected with someone who was like, "Yeah, I help companies like start holding companies, and then you can go public early. That will actually help you raise money faster." And it took me a few months and talking to different people about whether or not it made sense to do it. But yeah, we ultimately decided let's do that. And so I think we raised about $1 million from uh, our audience and our investors. And then the initial plan was to go public on the OTC markets, which would have been a lot cheaper, and maybe we wouldn't have been able to use our stock. Already got many benefits out of it, but it would have been like step one, be public, and then raise more money and IPO to NASDAQ. But because of in 2021 the markets were crazy and all sorts of IPOs were happening, we actually just had the opportunity to IPO on NASDAQ in 2022, but we started the process in 2021. And we just thought, okay, maybe we're a bit small for NASDAQ, and maybe, we really need to level up, but we might not get a better opportunity than this to go public early and raise money and then use the fact that we're public to grow faster. So that was really the why we did it then. But in terms of why actually be public, yeah, we felt like easier to do deals, easier to find capital, easier to hire talented people, easier to pay less cash up front for the deals, for the businesses.
Why that?
And so
sorry, why by being a public company, it's helping you put less cash up front?
I mean, it's like a trust thing, really. If a private company says, I want to pay you like 20% cash up front, you're probably going to say no. But if a public company says, I want to pay you 20% cash up front and I'm going to give you some stock, then it's a lot more appealing. And so when I say all of these things are easier, they're still not easy. They're just, they're just easier. And so, I think some of that stuff has come true, which I know, maybe we're going to talk about some of this later. But that was the initial kind of thesis behind why it made sense to be public.
Okay, interesting. And yes, later we will come back to how it has helped you do bigger and bigger deals and how you sometimes can put less money down or be creative. But how did it start? What were the first deals? What type of companies, and how did it evolve in those last 4 years now?
So the first companies were, after we decided we didn't want content sites anymore, we really went with agencies, like kind of marketing agencies. And there were two real reasons for that. I think the first was we understood them because my first business was kind of an agency, and my second business was like Onfolio kind of started out as an agency. And I mentioned earlier, one of our biggest acquisitions up until that point was $1 million, and that was also an agency. And we felt like, agencies, they don't get a lot of love, but they generally speaking, they produce cash flow. You don't always have to put more capital back into them. And some of our agencies were like just some of our best performing businesses. So we thought, okay, after we go public, let's buy more agencies. We also bought some online courses because, again, similar, we understood courses, we understood digital marketing and so on. And I mean, most of the acquisitions we've done have just been, like courses and agencies, really.
And to circle back to the financing part, how much money do you usually put down, and how do you finance the rest? Do you use banks like we would do in France?
We haven't used banks that often. Part of it is because banks like to see, like if Onfolio overall was profitable, I think banks would be a lot easier. But when they see our P&Ls and we show them, oh, we're going to buy this business and it's going to, make us profitable, they find it difficult to underwrite. But we've used debt. There's debt lenders. We raised money in the IPO, so we used cash. We we have two classes of share. We've got our common stock and we have preferred. And
Okay.
so we've given people preferred shares. What else have we done? Yeah, so the last acquisition we did, we raised an SPV as well, actually. So we basically wanted to see if we could do acquisitions without using any of our cash war
Mm-hmm.
chest. And so we raised an SPV,
Okay.
which is just like, it's kind of like a side fund, basically. Um, we raised about $1 million into the SPV. And then we had a business where we needed, I think it was about 600K we needed to close the deal, cash. And then the rest of the purchase price, we gave them some preferred shares, and we gave them or they gave us like a 2-year seller note. So we just paid them interest for 2 years, and then in October we'll pay off the rest. And the SPV paid the cash component, so that meant we basically did the seller note and the preferred share, and we got like 66% of the business. And then the SPV got 30. Actually, they got about 25%, and then the owners of the business kept some. So that meant basically the only cash we paid for that deal was like the cost of the legal costs and the audit and everything. And we did another deal similar to that where we paid, I think we paid 250K cash, and again we gave them some preferred shares and a seller note, and then the 250K cash we just borrowed it from some friends, like some investors. Like one person put in 50K, another person put in 100, and another one was 100, and we paid. And yeah, we just paid them interest, and then after 2 years we paid back the note. So that was pretty interesting for us because we didn't have a lot of cash, and we were like, well, we need to do acquisitions, but how can we do them if we don't have money? So it was a pretty good, it was a pretty good structure, and it was good for the SPV investors as well because they got to spread their money across like 2 or 3 deals without having to buy the business themselves and operate it and stuff.
Okay, so if the deal is good, the money will come. And if I understand correctly, there are a lot of people who would like to be owning this kind of good internet businesses, but they'd rather do it passively and just like invest and let someone like you gather all the money and do the operating work.
Basically, yeah, that's the idea behind it. Yeah, it's kind of like a passive investment for them.
Okay, great. So you created, in a way, this very specific niche of investment. How do you find those deals? What are your sources of deal flow? And what is basically the main criteria? What are you looking for?
So how we find them, kind of a little bit of everything. So hey, I go on a podcast, and maybe somebody messages me afterwards. But also, there are brokers out there. There are marketplaces. There are people we work with who kind of contact lots of business owners, and if someone's interested in a sale, they bring it to us. We've done outreach, and I mean, yeah, I joked about a podcast, but yeah, I do a lot of like content creation, and
Yes.
I speak at conferences and things like that. So people just kind of know to reach out to us if they want to sell, or maybe their friends, like they introduce us to their friends or something like that. So yeah, we kind of do everything, and then our criteria is.
Mm-hmm.
With online businesses, really the biggest risks are, one, a lot of these businesses are run by a founder or like a couple of founders. So the risk is when they leave, which usually they leave, what happens to the business? Can it survive, or is it going to just start to decline? And then the second one is usually client concentration. So if we're buying an agency, for example, maybe like 30% of their revenue comes from one client. It's too risky. And for us, also the size. We're really looking for something that's earning between 500k profit and like 1 or 2 million profit. Because at that size, we can kind of afford it. It's not too big, where it's going to become like basically this, the whole of the biggest thing in our portfolio. Um, any smaller, it's kind of too difficult to run because you just have to use all the profit of the business to hire someone to run it and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of the sweet spot that we look at.
Yeah, it's small enough that you don't have the competition from private equity too.
Yeah, that's the challenge. But yeah.
And this sweet spot, it's what you're looking for now. But I imagine when you started, if you had 1 million to deploy and you pay 3x, it was smaller than 500k. Do you see that it becomes easier now that you can target bigger businesses? Is it also safer? What are the differences between like sub 1 million and maybe above?
I think sub 1 million ones can work, but I think it's more like for an individual or a small team who just want to buy one business and run it. I think for us, when we buy a small business, like we bought one that was only making 200k profit or like 150k profit, and the problem with that is you might need to hire someone to run that business, and now the business doesn't really have any profit, or um, at that size they're just too fragile as well. Like unless you're really jumping in and doing it full time,
Okay.
which most of the time we're not. We're trying to buy a business and kind of leave it alone. It's just very likely that the profit just kind of evaporates over time.
Yeah, so at this size, it's good for maybe a first deal. Someone wants to get in the business of investing, but it's okay to do the work himself full time, and then the profits are just for them to grow and get some experience, like maybe you did before 2022. And then if you
Exactly.
want to
Yeah.
become pro, you need a minimum size. If not, you have to. I mean, you can. It's a full-time job, and you cannot. It makes zero profit in the end.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we look at businesses and we think this is a good business for somebody, but maybe it's not good for us. In fact, we passed on one about a month ago, and I think it was making like $5,000 a month profit or $10,000 a month profit, and there was nothing wrong with the business. It was just like, this is too small for us. We're going to eat all of those profits just with managing it. So, but if an individual person bought it, maybe they wanted to quit their job, or they, yeah, like you say, they just want to learn some experience. Yeah, I think it would be fine.
Okay, and so you wrote a lot about why those small businesses are just fundamentally cheaper. Can you, can you tell us more about this? Like, why is it the case? And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the risk is higher. That's why they're cheaper. Smaller businesses, like I said, maybe they they don't have a proper C-suite management running the business. Maybe their revenues are not as stable as larger businesses. Um, Sometimes it's like, this business, the founder just runs it from their phone. They just have a QuickBooks, or they just run it out of a spreadsheet. And if like a more sophisticated buyer was trying to come in, that they're going to lose a lot of those profits because they, like with us, we audit stuff. We have to have proper bookkeeping, and so the number just wouldn't work if somebody wanted like 7x or 8x for this. And so the where you make money and where the opportunity is like, well, the businesses cost less because they're riskier, So if you know how to manage that risk, then you can make money.
Especially if you can grow them, then there is the game of multiples. If you can take a business very small, maybe you pay it at 3x and you grow it, not only the SDE or like the profit grows, but also the multiple grows, so it's kind of exponential. And the link with this strategy, you said you are trying to buy bigger and bigger businesses, and your thesis is try to pay 3-4x. Do you see that it gets more and more complicated, or do you still have a good deal flow, even at 1 million EBITDA of businesses that are in your range of multiples?
Yes, I think it definitely, like, yeah, the larger the EBITDA, the multiple goes up, but maybe like a 2 million EBITDA business is only going to be 5x. So, but a 2 million EBITDA business is, generally a lot better than like a 500K one. So paying 5x or 4.5x instead of 3x is not a real problem. 1 to 2 million is a difficult place to find a lot of businesses because for sale, because typically a lot of businesses get to 1 million and then they kind of like they're going to plateau, I guess. And a lot of business owners are like, okay, you know what, I'm just going to sell it because I can get a few $1 million and move on. When you get to 2 million, it's like, oh, this business has actually solved a lot of problems, so that maybe the founders are going to stay until it's like 4 million or 5 million. So there's fewer businesses, but they tend to be higher quality. So,
Yeah, you pay a little bit more, but you pay for quality. So you're okay with that in the future.
Yeah, exactly. It's.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, these are like the kind of guiding principles we have, but it's never perfect. Like maybe we see a $1 million business for 5x and we think this is a pretty good one. Maybe we see a 500K business for 2x and we think this is a terrible business. So there's always exceptions to the rule.
Okay, so now you bought 7 businesses since IPO, but you reduced your cost from the holding company. I'm really impressed. How do you manage more and more businesses without spending more and more at the holding company? How does it work? How did you optimize your costs? And is AI helping you?
I think AI is not necessarily helping us at the holding company, but it's helping us at the subsidiaries. Well, I mean that's not true. It does help at the holding company as well. But when we first went public, one of our biggest costs was actually insurance. So I guess it's not mandatory, but a lot of public companies get D&O insurance, which is director and officer insurance. So if something goes wrong and you get sued, the insurance will pay the shareholders. And when you're first public, it costs a lot more. So I think our insurance in the first year was 250K, which is like a lot of money. Whereas now, because we've been public for over 3 years and we've grown our revenues and things like that, I think now our insurance is like it's less than 200K. Maybe it's one. I think it was 300K the first time, and now it's like 140 or something. So it's gone down a lot. The other thing is there's a lot of things you spend money on in your first year that you're not really sure if you need to. So we did a lot of investor relations. We did a lot of we did a lot of marketing that didn't really work. Or it worked, but over time we realized we didn't need it. Like right now I'm putting out a lot of content, as you mentioned, and AI is really helping me. It's helping me think about what to write. It's helping me do some of the writing. It's helping me manage like a content calendar. It's even uploading stuff for me. it's helping me. I'm getting a lot of replies from investors and shareholders, which is great. And
That's
I
good.
take their reply and then so for example, I tend to say in some of my content, sometimes I talk about EBITDA, sometimes I talk about net income, sometimes I talk about cash flow. And one well-intentioned shareholder said to me yesterday, or the day before, he was like, you should make sure you always use like consistent. Like if you want to say cash flow, just talk about cash flow. If you want to say EBITDA, just talk about EBITDA, because
Mm.
I know that you know what you're talking about, but somebody else might think you don't know what you're talking about because when people use the terms wrong, you just think that they don't know what they're talking about. And so I kind of thought, yeah, that's a good point. And I took that piece of feedback and I fed it into my AI content system and was like, yeah, like don't let me do this again. Just make sure I'm always consistent. And it went through all of my content and it like showed me areas where I should update it, and then it updated it for me, and then it rescheduled it for me. And that costs me like nothing. It cost me $100 Claude subscription, and maybe an hour of my time a week or a month. Whereas when we first went public, that probably would have cost me 10 grand a month,
Yep.
hiring a writer and dealing with everything. And when you think about all of those things, then that answers like one, like how AI is helping, and two, like how we've reduced our costs over time. Um,
And so one of the parts of my question was about how you manage more and more. How do you manage more and more businesses while reducing the cost? I understand that the costs are not really linked to people; they were more like admin stuff. So yeah, how do you manage those companies? Do you have CEOs in each company, or is it everyone in the home office, like the 6, 7 people that you are talking about?
so most of the companies have their own leadership team, and I don't really consider those part of the parent company. Some of the companies, maybe we have two managers, like one manager managing two companies,
Mm.
or people at the parent company are like really either working with them or like like maybe once a week they have calls with them or something like that. And so some businesses kind of don't need our help. We still check in and have calls with them. And some businesses, it's like, yeah, we're going to really work with you a lot this week or this month. And some, yeah, like I said, some of it we manage it almost like maybe the management team of the parent company is kind of managing the business. How we decide is kind of what the business needs.
Okay.
And when we're buying the business, um, some of them, the management team will come with the business, and some of them, they're going to leave, and we have to replace them. And so then, depending, have we owned it for 2 years? Have we owned it for 6 months? Is it going through a tough period? Just things like that kind
Mm.
of determine like how we're going to run it.
Yeah, I imagine it depends. It depends case by case. But as you said, most people at this size who sell their companies, they mostly want to leave. So you said in some cases you can just find a way to manage it with your current team. Did you also have to find new CEOs or new new leadership teams and hire from outside and put them in those companies, or is it mostly from inside?
No, we've brought people in from outside, maybe 4 or 5 times, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Part of it, it's just challenging because you don't know if someone's going to be a fit for the business until they're in. And I think that the most challenging is you buy a business and then you hire someone to run it. You actually don't understand the business enough yet to know what you need. So we let some people go after they've been with our companies maybe 1 year, and basically they just weren't a fit. We thought they're good people, they work hard, we like them, but we thought we needed this type of person for this business, and actually we needed a different type of person. So that's frustrating because you know when you fire, you waste a year finding out they were wrong, and then you fire them even though you know they haven't been bad workers and stuff. So now I think our attitude is more like, well, let's buy the business and run it ourselves for 6 months, and
Okay, that's
ideally
smart.
the founder stays on for 6 months, and then once we actually understand it, we understand what it is we need. That gives us a lot more. It makes it a lot easier to find the person you need.
Yeah, I think it's really good advice. Stay on and learn, because trying to find the right person immediately, it's often it will not be the right person, but not because of him, because just because you didn't know exactly what you need, because you didn't know the business. So I think that's good advice. I write it down.
Painfully learned.
I wanted to ask you about how is AI changing your businesses, and how it's changing your maybe investment thesis, but also the way you run your businesses. So what have you seen, and how did it change for you?
I think with AI, the big thesis we've had for like 3 years or 2 years, basically since ChatGPT came out, is there a model out there where you can buy businesses and then basically just use AI to make everything cheaper? Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the most extreme example is like you buy a business, you fire everybody, and you use AI. That is probably a mistake, but there's
Why?
probably a model where, well, I think you know you fire everybody and then the business is probably going to die. But um, there's probably a model out there where you buy a business and over time you replace people with AI. Like if somebody leaves, so I'll give you one example. Eastern Standard, one of our biggest business, someone from the leadership team handed in their notice, I think in November or December. They'd been with the company for like 10 years and, you know, they were great. And they just decided to leave, like just a life decision. I think they had a kid and just decided they didn't want to come back to work. And when the Eastern Standard CEO and COO and everyone, when they found out, they were kind of thinking, wow, how are we going to replace this person? But what they realized a month later was the number two person in that role, just teaching them how to use Claude Cowork and basically just Claude Cowork, they were able to do their job and do the job of the person who had left. And so
Wow.
it's like, because of AI, we don't need to replace this person. So first of all, that saves like, I don't know, 20 grand a month or something. I'm not sure how much this person was earning, but second
Good
of all,
salary.
yeah, I mean, in America, you know, Americans are not cheap. But yeah, so I think there's a model where it's like, okay, let's explore that, and then the other side of it is you don't fire people, but you can scale better without hiring. So let's say you have an agency where one person can manage, I don't know, 15 clients.
Mm-hmm.
Now maybe they can hire 30 clients. So you don't fire that person, but you don't need to hire another one. And basically, for 3 years, this was the thesis, and we were looking at all the different AI tools and looking at different automations, and it just felt like stuff's not quite ready yet. And I had lunch with someone maybe 18 months ago or 1 year ago who he basically took a year off and just did AI. He just learned about AI full time, and I said to him like, why can't we do this yet? And he just said everything's still being built.
Mm.
And then I think what changed for me was in January, so literally like 2 months ago. I A lot of people were talking about Claude Code and in particular Opus 4.5, and it wasn't just like the nerds who were really technical and love
Yeah.
digging into stuff. It was like other business owners and other marketers, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. So I started playing around with the tools as well, and I realized, okay, yeah, like AI agents are actually here now, like usable AI. And it's not just for coding, it's for marketing, it's for everything I talked about earlier with like how I use my content system.
Preparing a podcast,
Yeah,
researching
I
and
imagine.
preparing a
Yeah,
podcast.
exactly. It's like for a long time, AI has basically just been chatbots, but now it's actually like a useful tool. And so now I'm thinking, okay, first of all, kind of back to your question about the acquisition thesis. I think there is actually a real acquisition thesis now about buying businesses that like AI can really accelerate what they're doing, uh, and also, but also at the same time, like with agencies, you kind of have no choice because your clients know that you can use AI now. They're not
Yeah.
like, oh, hey, don't use AI. They're like, you're using AI, so instead of me paying you 10 grand a month or 50 grand a month, I just want to pay you 5 grand a month, and I want to get more than I paid you when more than I got when I was paying you 10. And so I think our basically agencies just have to evolve to that model, or they're going to die. And so on the one hand, I'm like super excited about this opportunity to do all the things I just said, but at the same time, it's like, wouldn't it be nice to buy a business where AI isn't a thing, and you don't, maybe I should buy a restaurant, or something where you don't have to worry about like AI disruption. And so it is trying to find the right balance there.
And being really careful that in the new businesses that you're going to buy, they fit on the right, they fall on the right side of the AI revolution. They can be, as you said, accelerated, improved, and optimized, and not destroyed. Like there will be the business models that will, and the companies that will profit, and the ones that will just disappear. Then you don't want to be caught on the wrong side.
Yeah. And one of the things I'm trying to figure out, not just with acquisitions, but with the existing businesses in our portfolio, is like, how do we just force our teams to rethink how they're using AI? I saw one. I was reading an article from Ben Thompson's Stratechery earlier today, and he was saying, like, he didn't recommend this, and he was like, but like, there's probably the best way to do it is to kind of fire everybody but one person and be like, you have to use AI, you have to figure out how to use AI. And he said, I don't recommend this because, for obvious reasons, but it got me thinking, like, yeah, what is the way to do this that doesn't involve just firing people? Like,
I've heard something recently that really got me thinking, and I really want to try it. And so this guy was a transition consultant for post-merger acquisition consultant gave me this advice, and I call it kind of like base zero audit. So it doesn't fire everyone. It's like you put everyone on vacation for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you wait and you see what breaks, and you only rebuild what needs to be built with the minimum amount of people and the maximum amount of, as you said, automations. Pay zero auditing. So everyone at Onfolio, holidays. Just an idea. I don't know. But this guy said that it might be dangerous, but also.
I mean, yeah, I think there's probably some reality where it doesn't have to be like that extreme, but yeah, it is. You think about, if you don't do that kind of thing, like somebody else is going to do it, and so then it becomes a race to not be the last one to do it.
Going back to agencies, that was interesting. I want to ask you, do you see? So I understand you said like the current clients are becoming, they know that AI is here, everyone is using it more and more, and understanding that they want more for their money. And I think if you already have them as a client and you evolve, seems safe. But what about the new clients? And did you see some type of niches or services where there just are no more clients? I ask this because 8 months ago, we bought a Webflow agency, and we grew the SEO, and now we are number 3 on Google in France for Agence Webflow agency, and we got 0 leads. It just dried out. So I wonder, with your experience, because you cover more types of services and niches, do you see some niches that are just disappearing?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know about Webflow, but yeah, if I saw a Webflow business for sale, my first thought would be I don't know if people are going to use Webflow in the future. Another one is content creation. We had a content creation agency, and we bought it like the same month that ChatGPT came out, I think. And it was the kind of thing where maybe people pay $5,000 for some content or $10,000 for some content, and it's just like an arbitrage play. So we're paying writers $2,000 for the content, and then we're managing it and everything, and then our profit is the stuff in between. And just over time, people would just like, I'm just going to use ChatGPT. And even though they know ChatGPT is not quite as good, they just don't want to pay like 10 grand a month. I think now that what I think that business should have done was what I'm planning to do was just offer like, I'll build you a content system, and you just pay, you just charge me 1 grand a month. You just pay me 1 grand a month, and so maybe with a Webflow agency, I don't know, but yeah, maybe there's something where it's like, hey, you don't need to use Webflow anymore. You can use Claude Code to build your website. We'll teach you how to do it, or we'll do it for you, and it's like a lot cheaper. But for you guys, it's like 99% margin. Because
What about
same. So I was just going to say, using AI agents still needs people to actually have agency, and most people don't have agency. So I think there's a kind of managed service solution that maybe is the future of agencies.
So more for the strategy part and being responsible and being the one who has the 20-year experience in communication and content, and managing the bots basically, or the systems.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
What about really high quality content, like high quality website? I'm sure in our case, maybe we just are not doing the right things, but I imagine some bigger businesses will still pay for the nice websites because it's just not their job. Do you also see that, for example, in content, there is like, okay, before, because of thanks to ChatGPT, 90% of the cheaper content just went away and people were using ChatGPT. Now maybe it's 99% thanks to Claude. Do you still see clients paying for the top 1% quality content, or is it also gone from what you see?
Yeah, I think it's not also the quality. I think it's the type of content. Like, there's a lot of technical content, legal content, stuff where AI can help, but you can't just stick it into ChatGPT and hope for the best. Same with web development. So Eastern Standard, the company I talked about earlier, they still do websites for people, and maybe a project for them is like 50 grand, or yeah, I mean, that's why they have expensive American employees. But they, I mean, some of their projects are millions of dollars. That's obviously more than just a website, but what they do is they use Claude now to create the vast majority of the code for the website, and so the clients don't know, or they know but they don't really care that it's the code's being done with Claude, because they're like, we're hiring you because we know like you said, you know the strategy, you know why we want the website, you're going to check the code, you're going to be accountable for the code. The other thing, I actually had a conversation with the CEO of Eastern Standard a couple of days ago, and he said there's a lot of their clients, they already have capability in their team to to use AI themselves or to build their own websites. Like a lot of companies that they might hire an SEO agency, they've already got people in their team that can do SEO. But the reason they hire an agency is it's about the expertise and the
Mm-hmm.
strategy and the mind space. So
Yes.
it's not so much about capability or capacity. It's about kind of like ownership and knowledge. And I think AI AI doesn't, some people are going to be like, oh, I'm just going to use AI now. But a lot of other people are going to be like, I just want to find the guys who are going to use AI so that I don't have to pay them as much as, I pay the guys that don't use AI. So, yeah, I think that's where it's heading. And I think that's true for high quality stuff as much as anything.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and it loops back to your thesis you had with AI finding a company where you can optimize the cost. You're saying not fire everyone, but this idea, well, maybe with high quality, high tech companies or agencies that do like big projects for big clients, they will always want an agency, as you said, for expertise and knowledge. But those maybe are interesting, like a lot of costs to optimize, maybe. But to finish, I would like to know about the future of Onfolio. What are the plans? Do you have any maybe goals?
I mean, kind of going right back to the beginning of the podcast, keep doing more acquisitions, get to the point where the portfolio is now more profitable than the fixed costs of the parent company. That's the goal. That's been the goal for a long time. How we operate those businesses might change, or what types of businesses we acquire might change. But fundamentally, yeah, it's still about like let's acquire, profit, and then scale from there. Yeah, and becoming a lot more AI native, which is what we've spent a lot of time talking about, is also I think a key part of the journey as well.
So what about types of businesses? I've understood that content websites are gone for you in the portfolio. I mean, you're not trying to buy any since 5 years ago. What about agencies? And are you looking at other things like SaaS maybe?
Yeah, yeah. I think also maybe even looking at stuff that is like not completely offline, but maybe less in the digital space, or something that's like a tech company, but maybe like um, it doesn't. It could be like a a company that is tech enabled, but maybe has like more physical presence or physical um, products, because the thesis was always we have to do digital because we understand digital. But over the last 3 years, it's actually, well, what we understand is buying small businesses and finding a management layer to run them and operate them successfully and so on. And so, like, we can't really go out and buy like a restaurant or something, but maybe, yeah, we've told ourselves like, oh, we can't buy SaaS because we don't understand SaaS, or we can't buy this because we don't understand it. But we already own a wide range of different businesses, so I think digital is actually more of a. It's just like in our mind, we believe it's a category, and maybe it doesn't need to be. So I don't know what that looks like. This is like thoughts I've been forming over the last couple of weeks, but I guess the point is like I think we're going to be a lot more open minded to what makes an Onfolio acquisition in the future.